Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about Warrior 2 and more specifically our legs in Warrior 2. There's a few things that you should be mindful as you transition from one pose into Warrior 2. So that's what I'd like to talk about today in this video. We're going to definitely talk more about the legs and then a couple of options for the arms. So we are going to add this into our flow from our lunge position into Warrior 2. So I'm going to have my blocks handy just in case. I may need them, I may not, I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to have them there. So normally we will be coming into our lunge position from either our mountain pose. There's a few places that we can get to, but once you've decided from your lunge position that you're going to move on. Now, you might notice that you're still at a point where you need more of a low lunge. As you progress and move into Warrior 2, you will have to have the back knee lifted. So that's fine if your progressions in your lunges are all with the knee down and maybe you're working different arm positions, maybe you're working on strengthening your abdominal muscles, maybe working that runner's lunge. That's all fine. But once we actually get to the actual transition from a lunge to Warrior 2, the back knee is going to need to be lifted. It's just going to be very difficult on the back knee if you try to pivot on it and try to get up into Warrior 2. So that's going to be your work, I suppose, is that lifting up into that high lunge where the back knee is lifted and transitioning. So that's where I'm going to go into, and we're going to talk about a few things. So we know that our lunge position, we're constantly talking about that front knee. And in Warrior 2, it also comes into play. Now, in our crescent lunge, our low lunge, our hips are generally facing forward. They may not be 100% facing forward, depending if you're on those train tracks or the tightrope, but in general, your hips are facing forward. The difference between crescent lunge and Warrior 2 is where your hips are going to be pointing. In crescent lunge, they're facing forward, and in Warrior 2, they're actually going to be facing the side of your mat, depending on what leg we are at. So the transition from your crescent lunge will start with the back foot. So the knee is lifted. Again, once I said, you have to kind of lift that back knee to transition. So the first thing that you're going to do is start moving the back heel towards the floor as you open up your hips to the side of the mat. So right now, my left foot is the one that's behind me. So that means I'm turning my hips to the left side of the mat. We'll switch sides, but for now, let's work on this side and go over a few things. So from my lunge position, my hips were facing forward. And now I'm trying to open up my hips to face the side of the mat. Yeah? So that's the first transition. You've dropped your heel because in crescent lunge that heel was lifted. Now the heel is dropped and the hips are turned. So that's going to be the first thing that you're going to notice is your direction has changed. Then we need to work on a few more things. In that transition from bringing your hips forward to the side, there may have been a change in the knee. So as soon as you make that turn, you have to start paying attention to what happened to the knee. So what tends to happen is, I'm just going to move over a little bit so that I'm hoping the knee is a little bit more towards you. So from our crescent lunge, we've opened up, and what tends to happen is that knee caves inward towards the center of our mat. And right off the bat, I got to tell you, this does not feel good for the knee. So the first thing that you should be mindful of is as you're making that turn is if that knee is collapsing in. I definitely would like to keep it back over here in line with my foot. Yeah? So I'd like to keep it over the ankle as best as I can, and I'm definitely trying to aim the knee towards that second toe. Yeah? So as I'm in my lunge, if I kind of look down my thigh, I should be able to see my big toe. So if I've collapsed my knee in, I see all of my toes. That's not going to be comfortable. Now, you might be the type of person that allows that knee to go out as you open up. Maybe you have that much flexibility in your knees and your hips that happens. And once again, I'm looking at all of my toes. So I want to keep that knee in as best an alignment as I possibly can. So it's in alignment with my ankle, and I'm trying to align it towards that second toe. Yeah? So what happens is, as you're trying to do that, you might notice, oh, I've opened up and now my knee has collapsed. And to get it back into alignment, I can't. I don't have enough space. So then we check to see what happened to that back foot. Yeah? If you've noticed here, I'm hoping you can see that, my toes are angled to the back corner of my mat. Now, unless I have some super duper deep flexibility, that probably isn't the best place for you. So I'm going to either have the back edge or the outside edge of my foot lined up with the back of my mat. That might help me bring my front knee back into alignment. And my hips may not be open enough for that even. So I might notice that those back toes have to come forward towards the front of the mat to allow me to open up this knee in my front lunge. Yeah? So that's another thing that you have to keep in mind. Yeah? So as you find the back angle that works for you so that you can keep the front alignment correct as best as you can, that's where your hips start getting into an external. It's an opening of the hips. The rotation is a little bit harder. So you might notice if you have super tight hips that this is already going to be difficult for you. So those are the first things that you're going to start to work on. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a break here, kind of give myself a little wiggle jiggle. Now, that's not the only things that you have to work on. There's a few more other things. So I'm going to just kind of switch sides. I'm going to get into my little Warrior 2 on the other side as I talk about a few more things. So again, I'm working on that front knee alignment. I'm working on the angle of my back foot. And as I'm working on those, you might notice that as you've played around with the back angle of your foot, that you can open up the stance of your legs. Basically, the distance between your feet can go bigger. And how do you really know if you need to go bigger? Is if the front knee is hanging over. This definitely is too narrow of a stance for Warrior 2. So I want to open. And here I also want to work on not allowing my back thigh and knee just to collapse down. Yeah? So I want to engage this thigh by pushing into the outside edge of my back foot, whichever foot is in the back. Right now, it's my right foot. So as I push into the outside edge of my back foot, this thigh is going to feel like it's being lifted and rotating even more those hips open. So again, this is a lot of work. It doesn't look like it, but I've worked on my front alignment. I've worked on my back foot alignment. And now I'm working to engage those hips, those thighs, those leg muscles. Yeah? So far, so good. You with me? So I've worked on those 3. And this is all in a shorter period of time than what we're doing. I'm really explaining this. So I've worked on 1, 2, 3, and now I kind of want to notice where my torso is. As I was working on the legs, did I notice that my torso is reaching forward? I'd like to still keep that rectangle of my torso. Remember the shoulders? I'd like to try to keep them over my hips as best as I can. As best as you can. What tends to happen is the torso leans forward a little bit. That's generally what happens more times than not. So as I've worked on all those foot and leg positions, I also would like to try to do the best as I can to get those shoulders the shoulders over the hips. So then you might notice as you're trying to do that, all of a sudden my bum stuck out behind me. So I'm trying to do all of this stuff. You might notice that you have to tuck your tail down a little bit. Draw the belly in so that you can get alignment, engaged leg, rectangle of my torso, and then the last little piece are those wingspan arms. This is where I'd like to have my T arms. Maybe you need to be cactus arms, but generally we're looking to get long arms from tip to tip in line with my shoulders. Try not to lean forward. Trying not to lean back, doing the best I can to get those alignments. And once I've got everything where I want it to be, my gaze goes to the front hand. Yeah? So that as we are transitioning to maybe another pose, or I'm working on breathing, I have that focus. You'll notice that sometimes if you notice yourself falling, or if you're unstable and you can't catch your balance, focusing on a spot helps you with your balance. So this, focusing my eye, usually it's one of your fingertips. But I got to tell you, when I look down my hand, I don't know if you can see it, I have this wrist bone that kind of sticks out. And when I look down my hand, did that make a scratchy noise? Sorry. As I look down my arm and my hand, that's what catches my gaze. So find something that catches your gaze. We usually work on the finger, but I got to tell you, this catches my gaze before my finger. So as I'm setting up my Warrior 2, my arms are here, my gaze is forward. I'm trying to soften those shoulders. Even though I'm trying to get my biggest wingspan in my arms, I'm still trying to soften my shoulders. So if your shoulders are super tight, you're going to notice that this is difficult. So those your arm span might not be something that you add in. You might be working on your legs and go, you know what? I don't have any strength to do anything in my arms. I can work here. I can have my hands on my hips while I work on all of those leg things. Yeah? So you might notice one side, you could do all of your leg points checking in with all of those things, and do the arms and have these super strong, long arms. And then you get to the other side and you go to do your arms and you're like, oh, that's okay. You're going to work up to that. So ideally, we're looking for those long arms, but as you're working into your Warrior 2, it might have to be here on your waist. It might have to be a shortened arm span, so it might be a cactus arm, working your way into that nice, long, wide stance. Yeah? So we talked about all of those things. Let's see if we can really see if we can transition a little bit from one to the other. So I'm talking about transitioning from a lunge with the back knee lifted into Warrior 2. So we're just going to play around just a little bit. So don't worry. Let's say you had to take a break or maybe you're going to fall out of it or something like that. That's okay. We're working on that transition because it seems easy, but dropping the back heel and opening up the hips might be a balance issue for you. So if you fall over, don't worry. We're working on that. That's the whole idea. Just do what you can. Yeah. So I'm not going to worry about my arms just yet. I'm going to work on my legs. So from my mountain position, my legs are where I need them to be. My hands can be maybe on my waist. And I'm going to take my left foot back. I'm going to take my inhale into my crescent lunge. So I've come to my crescent lunge, and this would be your inhale. Yeah? And your exhale would rotate you into Warrior 2. So I've taken my inhale and I've exhaled, opening up into Warrior 2. And that's when I start checking out those alignments. And as I rotate the hips open, the chest also is going to face the side of my mat. So check in with anything that you need to change. So you might notice, oh, I have to open up my leg spans a little bit longer. Oh, maybe I went too much. Oh my gosh, I went too much. And now it's like, now I have no stability. Okay, look where my knee is. It's way behind my ankle. Too much in my opinion. So I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. But don't go too short. Because guess what? If we went back to our lunge position, what would be wrong here, right? That whole knee over ankle. So again, finding that perfect spot, it's trial and error. That's why we keep repeating it. So my inhale, leg back. Exhale, Warrior 2. You work on all the leg points, all the leg modifications, and then the arm. Yeah? And then as an easy transition, I would just pivot on the back foot back onto my toes. And now I'm back into crescent lunge. Yeah? And again, that transition, it seems so easy, but you're going to notice, I'm losing my balance. And then I'm going to try to step forward into my mountain pose. Am I going to be able to do it with one step, or do I need... So I'm going to try to step forward, and you might notice by now, oh, my legs are killing me. Oh, I need 1, 2, 25, 35 steps. Yeah? So I'm going to work on the other side as well, just to kind of repeat in case you missed any of those pointers. So from your mountain pose, I'm going to take my right leg this time, inhale it back into the lunge, and as you exhale, drop the back heel, rotate the hips, rotate the chest. Now, I'm facing the right side of that mat. Make those adjustments with your foot, front foot, back foot. Engage those thighs, back edge of the foot, shoulders over hips, and then take your arms. Or you might be like, I'm too tired with the arms. I'm still working on that hip, leg, shoulder alignment. And that's okay. So our Warrior 2 is open hips, chest to the side, back heel down. Now to transition back to our crescent lunge, my back heel has to lift. So I'm pivoting on the back toe mound. And again, my mat is really sticky, so that's hard. So you're going to notice, oh, look, my crescent lunge stance, it's a little bit bigger than I thought it was or should be. Nice and long. I got pretty long legs, so my stance is pretty long. So again, now my hips are facing back forward into my crescent lunge. Yeah? So now, again, I'm going to try to step my back foot forward into my mountain pose legs. Can I do it with one step? I'm going to try. If I don't, who cares? Well, I'm a little bit off. But again, that's what we try to do. Try to get to our mountain pose legs once again. So maybe I stepped forward and my feet were a little staggered. Oh, I didn't quite make it. Who cares? I readjust, line up where my feet need to be, line up where my toes need to be, shift the weight where it needs to be so that you're in that stacked neutral spine, tall body. Yeah? Open chest, mountain pose. And again, the open chest and the palms facing forward, you never want to overdo it. Yeah? You've seen this all the time. You get into mountain pose and you got your legs and now you're like, okay! That's too much. That is definitely harsh on the shoulders. I'm peacocking my chest. My spine is not in alignment here, but I feel engaged. That's where I'm overdoing it. I need to find that comfortable. Even if I'm not 100% aligned, because remember, if we have been curved in our spine for years and years and years, getting this lift is going to be difficult for some of us. So I'm trying to get that nice length. I'm working on opening up. Constantly working on fine-tuning this, fine-tuning that, to see if my mountain pose could be nice and comfortable. So that my mountain pose can allow that breath to flow in and out even more freely. So that when I go from mountain pose to something else, I'm ready. I'm not too tired. I haven't exerted so much. I'm ready to go with calm, easy breath. So that is our transition from crescent lunge into warrior two. So the takeaway should be crescent lunge, the hips are forward. Warrior two, the hips are open. Still trying to work on that front knee alignment. And again, it may not be perfect the first time you get into Warrior 2 or even the 10th or 100th time. But we're really trying to avoid that knee caving one side or the other. We're definitely avoiding the knee hanging over our ankle in Warrior 2. If we notice that we're hanging over in Warrior 2, that definitely needs a longer stance. So you're going to notice that you start off probably narrower, even in crescent lunge and Warrior 2. And then eventually you get comfortable and your hips can be, oh, look, I can open. Oh, look, I can open. I can get even more, but not at the compromise of my torso leaning forward. So again, you have to find that Goldilocks spot that we talked about. Where can I get my legs to have those hips open, to have that shoulder over the hips, to have that front knee alignment, to not have that back knee collapsing in. Yeah. So lots of things to be mindful of in Warrior 2. So it looks so elegant, it looks so strong, it looks so easy, but there are lots of points that we need to work on, but we will work on. So our next flow is going to incorporate transitioning from our crescent lunge into warrior two. And then we'll see how we feel after we put those few things together. So again, always working on the modification that you need at that moment. Don't always think I have to be at that 150% modification all the time, because we know that there are some days that we're not feeling like a super person. We're not feeling 150%. Again, it's on those days. What can you actually do on those days that you're really not feeling great? But keep coming back to your mat, even if it's for a few minutes. Do 5 minutes and see how you feel. Maybe 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be a 14-hour yoga session. I don't know. Not too many people have time to do that. But keep coming back to your mat. Keep the body moving. We want our bodies to be flexible. I want to be able to move freely, not just here on my mat to do the poses. Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. But I want that flexibility to transfer into when I go and do my gardening, or when I go and play with, kitty cats that live in my neighborhood. I'm hoping one day you're going to meet my neighbor's cat. Oh, he's so cute. Anyways, I don't think he came today. Maybe next video. So I want that movement to flow into my activity that's off my mat, whatever it might be. So once again, a little bit more information for your toolbox. So we're adding in Warrior 2 into our legs and arm movements, and hopefully we can start adding that into our next little mini flow. So that's it for now, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.